All right, hey everyone. I'm hanging out here with Ed. He's another one of our students who's been doing a really great job trading in the last 12 months. We're really impressed with his success. We sat down with you, Ed. I think it was late spring, early summer, and talked about your strategy and how you'd been doing up until that point. And so we want to sit back down and get up to speed with where you're at and how you've done in the last few months. So first, let's talk about. We're going to go over a couple things. We're going to talk about the profits you've had year to date, the strategies that you're using, some of your struggles, and what you would consider the key to your success at this point. All right, so let's dive right in and talk first about the profits that you've seen year to date and the size account that you're using and that sort of stuff.
Um, what I've got year to date, just kind of ran the numbers last night because it was the end of the third quarter,
Yep.
and I ended up it was 78, 719 is what I ended up net profit, and really, the bulk of it came, once I started in the room.
Yeah.
I think I started in February, but actually I think I saw your webinar in December. I'm
Yep.
thinking, I think you either did it with eSignal or um,
Trade ideas, maybe.
Trade Ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Trade Ideas. And so I kind of started following. I liked the strategy, so I started adapting, and eventually made my way into the room. But I mean, it's been amazing, the transformation, because I actually started and funded my account in January of 2014,
Okay.
and started with $1,500 of money I could lose. I just saved instead of paying. I had a $200 a week habit playing the lottery, so
Okay.
instead of doing that, I put money up and said, I'm gonna throw it away anyway, so let's try this. And that first year, I think I ended up with made $9,800 that first year,
Okay.
because it was a struggle.
Yeah.
I lost a lot, and just didn't have a clue of what I was doing. And so this year, I said, starting 2015, I'm gonna treat this as a business, and I'm gonna learn what I need to learn, and you know just be disciplined, because I knew what my goal was. I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I just put my mind to it.
So did you start this year? You're using SureTrader, right? Because you're below
Yes.
the 25,000 PET rule. So you're using a SureTrader account, and you started the year. Do you keep about the same balance, or are you rolling it over? Do you have like what's your?
No, I wire out every month. I start off with like $5,000 at the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
And what I did, starting in, I think, May, is when I was trying to make the transition to Speed Trader, and I wanted to keep putting money in there so that when I start, I'm not going to have to worry about getting below 25 and then getting locked up for 90 days and all of this.
Yeah.
So, and ever since I started with SureTrade, I guess I had, because they're offshore, I was like, I just need to make sure I don't keep all my money in here.
Right.
And so I just started wiring out, and I think, let's see, to start July was the lowest I started with. Uh, my AC went out at home, and I just took the money I had made in June plus a little bit more. I think I started with 3,800 at the beginning of July,
Wow.
because I had to, get another AC unit. But
Yeah.
I just, I feel comfortable trading with smaller size, and if you find the solid setups and the ones that move, you really don't need to trade a whole lot. And I've learned that, and that's what I've been doing. Maybe I'm thinking next year. I was thinking January, I'll start with more money because I'll be, I should be over the speed trader by then,
Yeah.
100%. And I'll have to have more money in there.
Yeah.
So I kind of have to get used to seeing, more buying power and, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, one of the things that I struggled with when I was a newer trader would be that kind of ebb and flow where I would have a couple good months and I would build up my buying
yeah.
power, but I wouldn't take the money out. And
Hmm.
then with all that buying power, I sometimes get a little, I don't know, I would just end up getting a little complacent, thinking, well, I could
Hmm.
take 5,000 shares and some down 25 cents. I'll hold it. Maybe I'll even average down. And then I'd end up doing things that I really wouldn't have done if I had kept my buying power more realistic. And I've been able to get past that, but that's something that I think it's a really good idea that you're drawing out money. So you're starting each month with basically the same amount, and you're just repeating that success that you had month after month. And slowly you can start to grow that, but you don't want to do it too fast because then you might start falling into some bad habits because you've got more money and you can afford to make mistakes, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this keeps me, hungry
Yeah,
and, wanted to prove that I could continue to do this, month in and month out. And it's actually been consistent because I've been able to adapt when something stopped working.
right.
Um, there was something else that, I learned or I, saw in chat that I practiced on that, hey, this is working and let's do this,
Yeah,
because I know how to do it.
yeah.
And
So at this point, right now, starting with a $5,000 balance at the beginning of the year, you're almost doubling that each month. Not quite, but we're in the 10th
yeah,
month now, and you're up $78,000. So you're producing in terms of percentage gains. It's obviously really impressive, over 1,000% gain in 2015 to date. But I'm sure that you're using some of the margin that you're given.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you're day trading on margin. Now, are you holding anything overnight or are you strictly day trading?
No, strictly day trading.
Okay.
Um, I did take two swing positions so far
Okay.
in my speed trader account. One I took on Netflix,
Yeah.
um, and I only took 100 shares on a Friday. There was a lot of talk about them losing the contract and everything. So I said, this thing's going to tank. And, 100 shares wasn't a big deal right at that time. And Tuesday, it tanked 12, $13.
Yeah.
So I got out Tuesday and that was, I was stoked about that. And then the next one I took, I saw a big gap up it was a big gap it needed to fill.
Okay.
And I held it for like 3 or 4 days and just got out flat because it never did move.
Okay.
But that's the only time I've held, overnight. But I don't, I mean, I'm usually in and out. Um, I don't want to get caught in any halts or anything like that. But I always said I'm using margin. I try to stay no more than 3 to 1. Sometimes I'll go 4 to 1.
Yeah.
As I get more money during the month, then I'll have more to use.
Right.
But I always said I have money in the bank so that I can lose $5,000 and it won't hurt me because I built it up and I've got enough left in the bank.
Right.
So I know this is all I can lose, and
Yeah.
it kind of helps with my psychological aspect of trading too.
Yeah. And that's another thing that when you switch over to Speed Trader or any firm in the US and you've got to have the $25,000 minimum, now you've got
Yeah,
100,000 in buying power. So, you could potentially get yourself into a situation, especially with some of the small cap stocks where you could be taking
yeah,
30, 40,000 shares, which you wouldn't, but the fact that you could do that is a little scary. You have to really be at a
yeah.
point where you can trust yourself not to make a mistake on your hotkeys or, not to get emotional and do something out of frustration. Now, I wanted to ask you, do you predominantly go long or do you short as well? What's your preference?
My preference is excuse me, going long,
Okay.
but lately I've been shorting a lot.
Okay.
Um, it seems like it was just a natural transition because as I learned all of my long setups, I was actually able to see the shorts a lot better. And once I learned how to use support and resistance, I felt more comfortable shorting
Yeah.
because I knew the area where I needed to get out, before this thing got away from me. So I feel a lot better about, shorting now. And the
Yeah.
last couple of months I have been.
That's interesting you say that. When I got to a point where once I had a really good picture of what a good long setup is, by understanding that picture, it was almost like when I could see that, I could see the negative space around it to understand what a short position should look like. So
Yeah,
once I got really good at trading to the long side, I could see, okay, well, this isn't a long anymore. And now the logical thing on this is that it's going to be a short. And it doesn't mean, of course, that it's always going to be one or the other because a lot of times they chop in the middle, but it becomes a lot more obvious when you reach a certain level of trading that either this is a really good long position or you know what, this looks weak and I think it's going to come in a bit. So that's cool that you're making that transition. So in terms of the strategies that you're using to trade your account, um, we know that you're trading mostly to the long side, although you're trading a little bit more to the short side now. Do you have, and you said you trade Netflix and Facebook, but do you trade, what's your price range mostly? Is it mostly under $10 low float small caps or?
it was um, for a long time. I look for, just like you would do in the mornings. I look for the gappers,
Yep.
and I would look for gap up and gap downs, and I would look for the 15-minute open range breakout because I tried so hard to get the gap and go thing down, but
Yeah.
my brain just didn't work fast enough.
Uh huh.
And so I would have the same stocks, but I just waited. And I would miss, the initial gap and go move. But it seemed like it would always come and catch, and I could do the opening range breakout, which was, more my speed. But it seems like right when June 1st hit, these things just slowed down. It's like it hit a brick wall. And then I started looking at, hey, these higher dollar tickers, they can move 2, 3, or 4 points. If I get in 100 shares, you know, this is a low stress two, three, $400 trade.
Yeah.
So, I raised the dollar amount limit on my scans and, started looking at those. And, recently that's where most of my profits have been coming from, like GoPro and Netflix and, you
So
know,
are you trading? So when you create your watch list every day, what's your
mhm.
process? Are you looking for stocks that are gapping up and now you include the high price ones, or do you trade range bound stocks?
Well, the higher price ones I usually scan for at night. What I'm doing is I'm looking for um, the ones that are primed for a bounce, and there's a lot of chatter about them. There are other people watching them, so
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're going to be in play. If not the next day, within the next couple of days. And so I just have that watch list of those tickers that I watch, and it's usually only two or three. And then in the morning is when I look for the gappers. The ones that gap up, the ones that gap down over 4%. The same parameters that you look for. That's what I've been looking for, and I'll have them on watch. For my opening range breakouts or breakdowns, and I kind of go from there. I start the morning out looking at those. And I listen to you in chat and how you assess those tickers. I read everything that Mike is typing in the morning, and I'm quiet because I'm listening. I'm taking it in, and I'm making notes, and get really getting my mind ready for that day.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's smart. So,
And
what would you say is like your go-to strategy? What's your favorite setup? Do you go? Is it based on a pattern or a type of news? What's your favorite?
well, my favorite go-to strategy was the opening range breakout and breakdowns. But once they slowed and I started learning more about trading off the VWAP,
Hmm.
that's my number one go-to strategy. I'm either going to long it or short it based on what it is. Now they do have to have a range because I'm not trading with a lot of size, so
Right.
they need to have a good enough range. So I have the ATR, as one of the parameters on my scans. And before I trade, I'm going to look to make sure that it usually has enough range and that there's enough range on the chart.
That makes sense. Yeah. One of the things that we talk about in the trading course, there's a couple things that we start with. One, of course, is risk management. The
Yeah,
second is stock selection and choosing the right stock. So on any given day, there's a stock having, a once in a year type of event. And if we look at Sarepta today, I'll put up the daily chart here. This is one that we've traded a bunch over the years. And we only trade it on the days when it's really active. So let's see, let me just show on the screen share. So you can see Sarepta, it's having a big day today, a huge gap, tons of volume. So today it's in play. Sarepta back on May 20th was in play. It had another big gap. So those are the days that we trade these stocks. Now, you can trade stocks like Facebook, GoPro, and Tesla almost every single day
yeah,
if because they have such a range. Now, the only thing that's hard is that those stocks will often trade in sympathy or at least closely with the overall market. So
yeah,
if we put up the Facebook 5 minute chart here, um, and then we look at it side by side with, let's say, the SPY chart, you're going to see that they have a decent amount of overlap where when the overall market sells off, Facebook will sell off. When the market starts popping, Facebook will start popping. So those can be a little bit more difficult to trade if you're not keeping a close eye on the overall market.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's why I usually end up finding myself focusing on the stocks like Sarepta, um, a stock that's having a kind of once in a year, once every 6 months type of event that has a big reason to make moves because those are usually more predictable, both how they trade around the VWAP and how they trade on pullbacks and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, is your focus pretty much you trade stocks that have a catalyst in play, or do you trade like Facebook and Tesla and Netflix just on a daily basis with the overall market?
It just depends if there's a lot of chatter, and I call it crowdsourcing. If there's a lot of talk about, say, Facebook that day, or Netflix that day, or GoPro, or Fit, if there's a lot of talk about it, then I know that ticker is going to move, and I'm going to be watching it.
Yeah.
But I do like to, uh,
Oh,
I
is
think
that
I
Jeff?
need, let me,
Jeff on the chat room.
yeah, let me, yeah, I still had, I forgot to mute the volume. But I do look out all of the stocks that are, making that move, like you say,
Hmm.
all of the momentum stocks, I've got them on watch.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if those aren't in play for me, I have these other ones that I look at.
Okay.
So there's always a chance for me to take a trade. Now I can go 2 days, 3 days in a week without taking a trade
Oh,
because I know those 2 days that I do take a trade, it they usually make my week. And
that's interesting.
you know, I don't I don't force anything. And I did that for a year, and now a lot of a lot of people I talk to, I guess they look for me to trade more, but I just don't. It just has to be that setup, and I have to see range in it. And yeah, I miss some moves, but
Sure.
the ones I catch, they pay the bills.
That's really interesting. So, um, a lot of traders, especially once you get an account, you have margin, you can day trade as much as you
Yeah.
want. You fall into the pattern of over trading. You just see
Yeah.
things moving, you jump in, you jump out, and you keep moving. And one of the problems with that is you churn a lot of commissions, a lot of shares, and inevitably, if you take a stab at enough stocks, something will move. But you also expose yourself to more risk because there's always the
Yeah.
potential that you're going to get in one, and it just tanks on you, and it'll throw away a bunch of really nice winners. So,
Yeah.
being kind of you know like a sniper, being very focused, just waiting for your opportunity, and then striking is a really good approach, and that shows that you have a pretty high level of discipline, that you're able to be patient and sit through an entire day without taking a trade if nothing sets up.
Yeah. If there's nothing I like, I won't take it. And I have missed a handful of trades,
Yeah,
but I know I know what I look for, and I know what tells me whether there's that range there or not. Now, I think Monday I over traded.
yeah,
Um, I can't remember what I traded, but I know I had probably 10 tickets on this one stock,
yeah,
and it was because I was so focused on it, and I know this thing is going to move, and I do get into that sometimes, but when that happens and I realize it, I'm done for the day. I got out of it making some money, but I know that I'm not in sync. And Tuesday was the same way. Um, I just didn't get in sync. I took, I think, maybe two trades Tuesday, and yesterday was a good day. I only traded one or two times, and that was good.
yeah,
And this morning, I got in SRPT,
yeah,
and I wasn't comfortable. And so when it hit a point that I think it was an upper deviation band on the VWAP, I just took it all off because I wasn't comfortable
yeah.
um, with the spreads and everything, and then I took that loss on Facebook when I thought it was time to short, and it,
Right.
reversed real quick. But,
Yeah.
then after that, I was like, I'm done for the morning because I don't have a pulse of the market.
I,
And, that's it.
I mean that's really important. I remember when I was a newer trader, I, when I was having a day where I was red on 4 out of 5 names, instead just look at the obvious and say, look, you're not on today, or whether it's me or the market, whatever it is, it's not working. I would say, no, I've got to get back what I lost. I've got to get green on this and that, and I would just get aggressive. I would over trade. And sometimes I would expose myself to a lot of risk because I was just so focused on trying to get back what I lost. And instead of have that self awareness where I'd say, you know what, I'm not on today. The market's not working. I'm okay with closing the day red or flat or even a small gain and walking away. But that takes time to develop that ability to maintain composure and to recognize when you're starting to get emotional, because
Yeah.
there's kind of that moment where you still can get out of this, but when you start to get aggressive, you have a period where you can still walk away and say, all right, I'm getting a little aggressive, I'm going to step back. But once you get too far into it, you just get so absorbed in over trading. It's like tunnel vision, and it's really hard to step out of that. In those days, you can look at the end of the day and you've traded 200,000 shares. You've just been trading and trading and trading, and generally those are not going to be your big winner days. They're just days where you made your broker happy by churning a bunch of commissions, and you got yourself all
Yeah.
stressed out.
Yeah. I I can't handle those days.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I can't
I
either.
I did it was something that I had to work through because it, once I had a handful of people kind of following my progress and what I did. I used to post um, my thoughts on Twitter, my watch list, and before I went in the trade, I make sure I posted it. And it got to the point where I wasn't trading for myself.
Hmm.
And it was all about trying to not be wrong. And I was on the verge of getting myself into a whole lot of trouble because I was trying to, prove to everybody, okay, you can do this. This is what you have to do. And I didn't want to fail because I felt like I may let these people down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not about that. That's not what this was about. And I had to detach myself from that. So, right now I only chat with a handful of people on, Hangouts during the day that I share my thoughts and my trades with and when I'm going in and out and stuff. But, because I was, I think that would have been a train wreck for me had I continued to do that because I wasn't in a position that I could do that yet. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they start trading and get some success, and people are saying, "Man, I want to do what you do. I want to learn what you do," and then all of a sudden you can't make a mistake or you
Right.
can't be wrong, and so you're going to take chances, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I can relate to that. Running the chat room for me, it's kind of like
yeah,
every trade that I have, I've got all these people that can hold me accountable and can say, look,
yeah,
you know, what are you doing? You're over trading. It's lunchtime. And, I've got people that'll message me and say, that was stupid, or, and sometimes, and, if they're right and, it was a bad decision, then, okay. And granted, I lose every day. I mean, it's impossible to find a trader who doesn't have losses. So, I'm not going to be right on
yeah,
every single trade. I win more than I lose, and that's why I'm profitable. And I manage my losses properly. But, it can be hard when there's a spotlight on you because, yeah, every trade can be, kind of examined and critiqued. And you have to make sure that you are able to, I suppose, use that in a good way. So I kind of harness that, that ability for the chat room to hold me accountable by making sure it doesn't let me do things that are really reckless. There's times where I'm thinking,
yeah,
man, maybe I'll just go for this reversal trade. I know it's lunchtime and I shouldn't do it, but maybe I will. And then I think, you know what? No, it's just not what I teach. It doesn't make sense. Maybe it'll work, but it's high risk, so don't do it. And so it can help, but it can also get you really distracted, and you want to focus first and foremost on finding good stocks to trade every day. And if you're constantly dealing with someone, the thought of people looking over your shoulder on Twitter and stuff like that, that could be hard. So I can
yeah.
understand that.
And yeah, I can't believe how calm, cool, and collected you are all day. Because
Well,
I mean, I can't imagine people sending you things. Because I never told you this, but after I saw that the first webinar that you did, I'm like, man, this gap and go thing, this is perfect for me. I love this. First time I tried it, I lost like 230 bucks
yeah,
because it went up and then it tanked. And
yeah,
I'm trying to get out, and next thing I know, I bought more, and it's continuing to go down. And I'm
right,
like, so I was like, oh my gosh. But
yeah,
I was like, that's why he says you need to practice and all of that. But I
yeah.
can't imagine how many messages you get saying you're crazy, man. This doesn't work.
I know. I mean, that's part of the deal for sure. And actually,
Yeah,
PACB was a good example of that this morning because this looked like a good gap and go trade over 480. So I had it on watch, and instead of popping up over 480, it dropped like 50 cents out of the gates. And we didn't get in it. We waited. On this one, we waited. But if it had
mm,
popped up, I probably would have jumped in. Then we took the red to green opportunity. So it definitely shows you that particular strategy. What we're
yeah,
looking for is volatility at the open, and some
yeah,
stocks at the open have an extreme level of volatility. We had that gap and go on. I think it was OHRP where it opened at had a pre-market high of 250. We bought the pre-market high, and it went up to like 580. It went up 100% in 15 minutes, and that was a perfect gap and go. And we've had a lot, to that extent where they open and they surge, but you also have to be able to, watch the first pullback and that sort of stuff, because the amount of
Yeah.
volatility in that first 1 minute can be too much for some traders. So, one of the things that we teach is how to capitalize on that volatility, because, if you've got a stock that has the potential to move up or down 80 cents in the first minute, you could do two things. One, you just sit out and say, you know what, it's too risky. I'm going to wait 5 minutes to take a trade. And that's what you seem to do. And that's totally respectable. And on the other hand, you could say, well, this is moving. There's opportunity. So what type of pattern can I apply? Or, what do these typically do? And then, you start to take trades, but you need to make sure, of course, that you're using the best tools, that you've got your hotkeys, and you're able to move in and out quickly, because there's nothing more frustrating than seeing something go up 50 cents, you don't lock in the profit, and the next thing you know, it's down 50 cents.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one thing that I have to work on. When something is that fast and that volatile, emotionally I can't handle it. Because that's just not something I've been able to work through. And that might be one of the next steps, is to work on that. So everything I do has to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And has to be, and if I'm not comfortable, I'm not trading it. And I think what I've done has worked. I know, maybe if I double my position sizes next year, and I double what I make, just staying small, staying consistent, I think, I can accept that. I'm not trying to be a millionaire in a year.
Yeah.
And it's just a mentality that I have. I guess it may be a Southern thing. I don't know. We can't stand traffic down here. We like things to move slow.
Yeah.
And free.
So what you've mostly been doing is our momentum strategy. We've got, a couple different sub-strategies. Sub-strategy one is the gap and go. Sub-strategy two, buying the first pullback on momentum names. And then 3 is buying momentum names around the VWAP, whether it's to the long side or momentum to the short side. So you focus more on the second two, the first pullback and buying around the VWAP.
Yes, exactly. And, earlier in the year, I was, the bottom reversals were, I love those. But, they dried up.
Yeah.
So you don't see too many of those anymore. Every now and then you catch one. But, I love those that, I think Corey was a big, bottom reversal trader when he was in the room.
Yeah.
And I kind of picked up a lot of that. And luckily around that time, I saw the webinar that Mike did in chat on the VWAP.
Yeah.
And that was like an awakening, because I could apply that even to the open and range breakouts. Instead of me waiting for it to break out, if it bounced off the VWAP, or, I learned how to use support or resistance. If it bounced off support, then I know this was a good place to take it with my risk right below that support.
Yeah.
And, and I have a trailing stop now. I use the 9 moving average on even my long and my shorts. If I'm in a long position and I have a candle that closes below the 9, then I'm, that trade is dead for me.
Yeah.
Likewise, if I'm short, if a candle closes above the 9, I'm out. And, since I've been doing that, it's real hard for me to lose. The trade would just have to do something like Facebook did this morning. Just, for no reason, just pop back up.
Right.
And just be choppy and all of that. And I haven't had this much confidence in anything in a long time because it's a solid risk reward, strategies that I learned, in here.
That's awesome. I'm really proud of you. I mean, you're doing it. What you've done here is achieve a level of success. And you know just as well as I do how hard it is to succeed as a trader. And this year, you're up 1,500%. You have achieved
Yeah.
really some huge success. So I'm really impressed with you.
Well, I appreciate it, and I don't think I know it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have found you and the community, and I started mentoring with Mike,
Hmm.
and that's made a huge difference, in the last couple months,
Yeah,
and just perfecting, how I trade,
yeah,
and I mean, and I know going forward, I'm probably won't get the same level of success because I mean it's high because I just started. But I know you're going to get to a point where you just start maintaining, and I just want to make sure when I get to that point that I can continue to maintain
yeah,
and keep that hunger because I think that's what drives us.
yeah.
But I was thinking, I was thinking back the other day. I was talking to another relative about my trading and everything, and I told him it, when I started teaching, I learned very quickly that teaching was an art form. It's not an exact science. And I translated that into trading. And when I did that, it opened up a whole new world. It wasn't this, it has to be done this way exactly. It has to fit your personality. The, the person that you learn from has to have a personality that, you know, you can learn from it or a teaching style that fits,
Yeah,
the way you learn.
yeah,
And I told him that was a big, reason why I've been so successful. And, I told him about the year before, it's like when new traders come in, if you picture a kid with his first puzzle, jigsaw puzzle, and you dump it out and he's looking at it and he has no idea where to start. You've got all of these pieces and you don't know where to start putting it together.
hmm,
And it's the same way in trading. You've got all of this free information and all of these um, free lessons that people put out, and you don't know how to put it together. You don't know how to start. And you've got 10% of the people that can figure it out pretty quickly and go off on their own. Then you've got, another, I guess, 40% that, a parent or a sibling can tell them, okay, this is how you start. You start putting the pieces together here. You look for this corner, look for that corner, and you've got those. And then you've got some that they look at it, look at all the pieces, and like, oh, the heck with this. This isn't worth it, or they quit.
yeah,
But and then once those people that learn these strategies, some may start in the left corner, some may start in the top right corner, um, some may start in the middle, some may just build one side or the base. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you have a strategy and you have somebody to give you an idea and guide you into how to put these pieces together in order to, get that common,
yeah,
get to that goal or your end goal.
yeah.
It's,
You're absolutely right about that. And in trading, if you line up 20 successful day traders,
mhm,
we might each have unique strategies. And I'm one of those guys that I'll never badmouth another trader because
mhm,
we all have a unique approach. And I have the utmost respect for some of the other big traders out there. Tim, Nate, Foos, Kanal. Those guys are great. I'm really impressed with the way they trade, and I could learn a lot from all of them. But we all have our unique approach, our unique style, and the lens that we see the market through. And it's a combination of the levels of risk that we're comfortable with, the size of our account, our mentality, our life experience, so
Yeah.
it's not one strategy that fits every trader or every student. There's different teaching styles and different strategies. And at the end of the day, when you put that puzzle together, it's going to, have aspects of different, different strategies that are used by different traders. But in the end, it's going to be unique to you because it
Hmm.
has to be. That's the only way. So,
Yeah.
students that come into the trading scene and want to just, simply follow another trader, the problem with that is that, it's almost impossible to, replicate trade for trade the success of someone else. And
Yeah.
it doesn't account for, what about that trader needs to be unique, what's going to work for their speed, how they can use the computer, and all that stuff. So, um, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that one. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
when you first get into trades,
Hmm.
um, do you set stops, live stops, or do you have a max loss per trade? How do you manage your risk on those trades when you first
Now,
get in?
when I first started, I had a dollar amount max loss, and
Okay.
it's funny when I was listening to the interview you had with Jay, and I was like, that's the way I used to trade. I didn't have anything on my charts. I looked totally at the candlesticks, but then I had a max dollar loss that if it hit that, I'm out. And but then once I started using support and resistance and using the levels, I could once I got in the trade, say if I'm 10 cents off the VWAP, I'm gonna set my stop about 5 cents below. It's gonna be a mental stop. But I know if a candle closes below the VWAP, 9 times out of 10 it's coming down.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going. I'll let it dip down and form a wick below it. That doesn't matter. What I'm looking for is it to close below the VWAP, and if it does, I'll take it out. So in that case, I'm not looking at a dollar amount. And what I started doing was my position sizes are going to be based on how much buying power I want to use up.
Okay.
I'm never going to use 6 to 1. I'm never going to sit there with $30,000 out there. I'm not going to do that. So if I'm willing to risk like 2 or 3 to 1 buying power on a high dollar stock, and I can only go in 100 shares, then that's all I'm going to go. But
Okay.
it has to make sense because it has to have at least a 2 or 3 point range or
Right.
possible range. If it doesn't, I'm throwing my money away.
Yeah.
So, and I look at it that way. So my stops are going to be based on an area of support or resistance, versus a dollar amount like I used to do. Which, like today in Facebook, I could have let it ride to my max loss is $100.
Per trade.
So, yeah, per trade. Now, and that happens when, say, if I'm in a trade and it's close to, say, the 9, and that's going to be my stop. If it starts washing out on one candle, once it gets to close to $100, I'm gonna dump it.
Hmm.
But like today on Facebook, it closed. I had a candle that closed below my stop, so I took the trade off. I only lost like what 25, $26. But had I sat there and waited, I would have lost all $100.
Right.
And I don't do that anymore. I did that at first, and you can still make money that way, but I try to keep it tight.
Do you also have a max loss per day where you just shut it off and walk away?
Um, I set it at $300, but I've never hit it because if I make 2 trades and I'm not feeling it, I'm done. Like this morning, after that third trade, and I was like, I just don't have it today. I can't get a feel for it. So sometimes I'll come back after lunch, you know, around 12:30 or so to see what's going on. But in the last couple months, I might have traded 3 or 4 days after lunch. That's all. Most of my trades have been in the morning before, and I'm done by 11:30 or 12.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's for the most part that's the same as me. I book the majority of my profits before lunchtime,
Yeah,
and Jay was the same way, where he books his profits by noon,
yeah,
lunchtime, and then he goes to bed because of the time zone in Australia.
yeah.
Um, that makes sense. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so, what are one of the things that you still struggle with from time to time that you want to work on in the next few months?
Um, I still get when I'm in a stock that gets volatile, I still have these emotions that make me jittery.
Hmm.
Um, I was that player that when I played sports, I could practice with the best of them,
Yeah.
but when I got in the game, my hands would turn to butter, and I couldn't perform. And in a sense, that's the way it is with these faster tickers. That when they are volatile,
Hmm.
it's hard for me to trade them. So that's why I always wait for the first pullback or wait for it to come off support. Most of the volatility, the people that are making the quick money, they're in and out and they're done with it. And it kind of settles down and it gives me a better feel for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And, but I want to get to the point where I'm comfortable in a volatile stock like that because, when the next AQXP comes along, I want to be able to take advantage of it.
Right.
Unfortunately, I was on vacation the 2 days that, Friday I was driving to another location, and then Monday I was coming back
Yeah.
and missed the whole thing. But, I want to be comfortable taking tickers and being able to actually stay in the trade and take advantage of, you know, volatility like that. Because I tried to trade off the 1 minute chart and the 2 minute chart, and I couldn't, so I just stuck to the five. And it
Hmm.
just recently, Mike is working with me on using the 2 minute chart for entries
Hmm.
so that I can, get better entries on the set. Still use the five for the setup, but
Yeah.
just have the two for my entry. And I mean, the 5 minute chart slowed everything down so that I was calm and I could take, there used to be 15-minute opening range breakouts. Um, I'll do 5 and 10 now based on what I see. I'm comfortable doing that, but inside of that 5 minutes, I'm a nervous wreck. So I just like to watch.
But that's okay. You're doing a really good job as it is. So if you're able to kind of expand your strategies a little bit, I
Hmm.
mean that'll certainly that'll help you. But one of the things that I've done when I've wanted to expand into new areas, whether it was trading breaking news or shorting parabolic movers, was just start with smaller size. Anytime I
Yeah,
feel like that blood pressure, heart pounding, it's almost always because my size is too big. Because otherwise, if I'm
yeah,
in something with 10 shares, who cares? You know what I mean? Like 100 shares.
yeah,
But if I'm in something with 5,000 shares and it's volatile, that's when I start to think, okay, this could either be a huge winner or a huge
yeah.
loser. So scaling back the share size is a good way that I've found to sort of transition into new strategies when I've wanted to branch out.
Yeah, I remember you giving that advice, and I mean I tried it, but I don't. It's like I'm looking at the chart and this thing is jumping around,
Yeah.
and see I don't look at my P&L during the day. I found out early on that that was affecting me getting out of trades too early because I would make $50, $75, and the thing would run up and I could have made $300 or $400.
Mm.
So I hid it, and now I'm just watching the chart. And when I see the thing jump around, I'm not registering. I'm only in 100 shares. I'm looking at this thing go wow. But I know it's just a matter of time. I use that the on Thinkorswim, I use their on-demand feature on the weekends where, I can go back to a day.
Yeah.
And I try, sometimes I speed it up so that I can get used to, things moving a little bit faster.
Hmm.
But I focus right at the open. And I focus on those tickers I know that moved, that y'all traded.
Yeah.
She maybe did a gap and go on. So, and I'm trying to get more comfortable, with that because I know eventually I'm going to have to be settled. And I'm going to have to, scale it up. So, I mean, now I'm so comfortable because the max I'll trade is 1,000 shares.
Okay.
Like up to a $20 stock, 1,000 would be the most. I think GoPro, I went crazy the day that I lost my mind and traded 1,000 shares of it.
Hmm.
Luckily, it worked out because I had lost in the morning and I came back and it's like that was the first time I had two losers in a row, and really the first time I had lost in a couple of weeks. And I felt I had to get it back. I got caught
Yeah.
up in that
Yeah.
and got in GoPro in the afternoon and went 1,000 shares. When I looked at it, I said I lost my mind. But luckily, it worked out. But I have to get comfortable with that if I'm going to move to the next level.
Yeah.
And so, another thing I'm trying to work on is being able to scale in and scale out, and well, mainly scaling out. Um,
Hmm.
but I have to be in with at least 500 shares, I guess, to make sense for me to take half off here and book some profits. So that's another thing that I've been working, with Mike on, and once I bump my share size up, I want to be proficient at it.
Yeah.
And like Monday, I was trying to scale out, and I don't know what I was doing, but I had all of these. I made Share Trader some money on Monday because I was in and out all morning on the same ticker.
Yeah.
If anybody was looking at it, they probably would have said, "Man, this guy's crazy." But it's something that I want to get proficient at before I make that next step. So I guess those are the two major things.
Hmm.
Um, I've taken everything in stride, everything step by step, making sure that I had all of the right tools, um, in with the right people, and that's made a big difference. And I think that's really the secret I feel to my success was everything that you taught me being able to put it into practice. And I'm thinking it may be because I was a teacher and I was in education that I understood the process and how you can't jump in with both feet thinking that you're gonna, swim. You're not gonna sink. And I just took it the same way I teach my students. That's the way I learn.
Hmm.
And it, everything came together. Same way I put um, my trading station together. I started with my laptop and one screen, and then I just kept adding so that I won't have to keep flipping from screen to screen. Everything is there, and I'm just more comfortable. But
Yeah.
it just took time, and I see a lot of traders want it now. I started making 20, 30, $40 a trade, trading 100 shares on a $2 or $3 stock.
Yeah.
And when I got consistent making 20, 30, $40, then I went to the next.
Right.
But when you add, and at that time I was probably trading 4 or 5 stocks a day. When you add that up, you're making a little over $100 as a beginner, and just add that up. It just keeps growing.
Yeah.
So I think that's what helped me was being able to understand the process. And I mean, and you guys teach so well. I mean, I would swear y'all had education degrees, because of the way you teach and the way you explain things. And, it everything just clicks. And that's why I try to steer, everybody I talk to, this way. I know on my blog somebody somebody commented a couple weeks ago saying that this sounds like an advertisement. I was like, well, yeah, it is. If you believe in something that much,
Yeah.
you're going to promote it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. A couple things that you've said that stood out to me. One, the fact that you'll go days sometimes without trading. That shows this really high level of discipline and composure that is absolutely required for success as a trader. You have to know when to sit out of the market and just let it do its thing, chop around, and when you have your good setup, when you've got to really strike at it, because that's the one that can cover you for another 3 days of waiting. So
yeah,
that ability to have that discipline. And the second thing you said is that you said in 2015 that you wanted to treat this like a business. And
yes,
it is, absolutely. You're self-employed as a day trader, and you've got your overhead, which is your computers, the cost of your computers, your subscriptions, platform fees, and you're running a profitable business, but you have to take it very seriously, following strict rules about when you trade, what types of trades you take, how much you risk. You've got that all dialed in. So I think those are a couple of things that really stand out to me as being a common thread that I hear among successful traders and among our students that are successful. And the last thing that I think you have going for you that I don't have going for me right now, I think that young guys that start trading, we can still be pretty emotional and
yeah,
get frustrated, get angry when trades aren't working. And it's easy when you start having that rise of emotions to allow it to fuel revenge trading, aggressive trading, and it almost never ends well. And in fact, for a lot of new traders and new students, it can end with blowing up their account.
yeah,
And you're at a place in your life, same as Jay, where you're kind of stepping back from a life in educating, a career. You're looking at this as a its own business, a kind of part-time job that you do in the mornings, and you just have this level of calm and composure about you that I think is maybe part of where you're at in your life that is really an asset, and it's something that I want to try to channel so I can get more of that, and maybe as I get a little older I'll get more of it. But you've really done an incredible job this year, and your profits, I look at them, they're all verified, and I go through them, and I'm impressed with the trades you take. You've really just been blowing it up. I'm impressed.
well, I appreciate it. And I owe it all to, you, Mike, and Jeff, because that's where I learned it.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I learned the basics, from the bumpy road I took to get there, but
Yeah.
like I said, I didn't know how to put all these pieces together. And, you guys showed me how to do that, and that's worth its weight in gold. So,
Thank you.
I will, as long as you're here, I'm going to be here.
All right. Well, that sounds good. So let's catch back up in a couple months and see where you're at, see how you finished 2015. But I'm sure you're going to do a great job. So we'll talk again soon.
But I just hope, and I had a dream last night that, I'm going to make 100,000 at the end of the year. I was, I did the wrong thing. I sat there last night and figured it up and said, well, if I make the same amount I've been making
Mm,
every week, I'm going to hit it. And that was the wrong thing to do. So I'm
yeah.
trying to digress from that.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You've done well enough right now, up, over 1,000% on the year to, stop trading for the next 3 months. You don't
yeah,
have to make any more money. I'm sure you've made more than you need, and you can just keep doing what you're doing, stay focused, and you'll finish up the year strong.
yeah, that's my goal. Stay hungry.
Yeah. All right, Ed. Sounds good. Thanks for
All right.
hanging out with me.
All right, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.